A big night for German football. Bayern Munich has secured an 8th successive title in the Bundesliga after a 1-0 against Werder Bremen. The team celebrated in a near-empty stadium now that the league's matches are being played without spectators. It's not the last match of the season for the Bavarian team, but this 11th straight win has put them 10 points ahead in the league.
I'm very proud of the team. They played a sensational round, a sensational season. I think the team spirit and mentality of the team, but also their joy of playing together with their fighting spirit, especially through the previous 3 games, has been extraordinary. Today it was a difficult game. The team tried to push on even 9 men in the outfield to make sure we managed to do it today. That is why I'm so impressed with them.
Well, let's speak with Kevin Hatchard, Bundesliga commentator who's in London. Morning, Kevin. Look, I'm not a huge football fan, but in any game, they are such a dominant team. Having won 8 successive titles, what does that do to the dynamic of the league? Does it make it a little bit boring if the same team keeps winning?
It's not boring per se. I think it is difficult for the league because ideally they would want a really difficult title race for Bayern every single season, and they'd want the likes of RB Leipzig, Borussia Dortmund, maybe even Bayer Leverkusen and Borussia Mönchengladbach to push Bayern. But I think the temptation in this debate is always to kind of see how we can drag Bayern down. Actually, what I'd like to see is how can other teams get up to their level, because they've set an extraordinarily high bar. They've won 8 Bundesliga titles in a row. That's never been done before. They've now won the German Championship 30 times. It's a remarkable achievement. And you look at earlier this season, in December, when they lost at Borussia Mönchengladbach, they were 7th in the league and 7 points off top spot. So to turn it around in the way that they have is hugely impressive.
Presumably eyes now are going to be on the Champions League. What might their chances be there?
I think they've got a great chance because I think they have to be seen as one of the teams that has rhythm. They have huge belief since Hansi Flick, who you heard from there, took over as coach. He replaced Niko Kovac, and I think the players have a real belief in his ability to come up with a tactical scheme to get them winning, and they're enjoying their football. Their players are largely fit again, which is great for them. Niklas Süle, who's an important centre-back, German international, might be back by the time the Champions League comes around as well. And I think because of that momentum that they have and the fact they'll have had a little bit more of a rest than some of the other big contenders, I think they're right in the mix.
Something that is hugely changing the dynamic of the game is just playing them in empty stadiums. Are you seeing coaches, managers sort of taking different opportunities or using that almost to sort of test out a different strategy?
Not per se, but I think what we are seeing that's really interesting is we're seeing who the leaders are in various teams, because you can hear guys who simply don't shut up for the entire 90 minutes because they're organising their teammates, they're organising the defence, that kind of thing. So you think about David Alaba, for example, at Bayern. I don't think people realise just what a leader he can be, and that's been good to see. In terms of, I think some teams have missed having their fans, but Union Berlin last night managed to secure their place in the Bundesliga. They were one of the teams that I felt was really missing the fans, but an amazing achievement from them because it was only their first ever season in the Bundesliga, and the way they've been able to retain their place in Germany's top flight is very, very impressive.
For some of the players, does it make them more relaxed to play when they don't have that pressure of the immediate audience?
Yeah, I think we've seen examples of that. I think if you look at Hertha Berlin, for example, it hasn't quite worked out for them the last few games, but they had a very important surge under their new coach, Bruno Labbadia, when they first came back after the restart. And that pretty much saved them from relegation. And you listen to some of their players, they've said, well, look, our home record was awful. And sometimes you do play with a bit less pressure because fans aren't there. And also you can hear the instructions of the coach much, much more clearly. So I think some teams have struggled without the fans and some teams have tried to use it to their advantage.
Well, for the fans, it's given them a really interesting perspective if they can sort of hear the dynamics of what's going on the pitch. But how are they feeling about not being able to get right front and centre in the stadiums?
Well, it's awful for them. And I think from the get-go, many fans were against this. They didn't want the league to come back without them. And I think it's very important that we recognise that a big part of football is missing. So it's been great to have the Bundesliga back. Certainly for somebody like me who covers the league on a regular basis, that's been thrilling to see the players back in action. But we must always remember that those fans provide so much of what we love about the league. It's about the culture, it's about the noise, it's about the spectacle. So I think going forwards, you know, as soon as we can have fans back safely, and it does have to be safe and we can't rush in that regard, I think that's something we have to work towards as soon as possible.
Also in football, later today, the English Premier League resumes. Who should we be watching out for?
Well, Sheffield United taking on Aston Villa, and that's a really interesting game because Villa are battling relegation and Sheffield United have been so good in terms of what we expected. We thought they might battle against relegation, but Chris Wilder's done a sensational job in organising them, and they play some good football. They can be direct, but they can mix it up as well. And Manchester City against Arsenal, which is a glamour match and a fascinating one as well, because it's Mikel Arteta returning to a club where he was part of the coaching staff. It's kind of master against apprentice, if you like, with Pep Guardiola against Mikel Arteta. City haven't quite given up on the league title, but of course all of the odds and all of the numbers are against them. And for Arsenal, I think it's important for them between now and the end of the season to show that they're on the right path with Arteta, because it didn't quite work out for them under Unai Emery. So they need to start showing not only can they avoid defeating games, but they can win games as well.
Well, lots to look forward to. Thank you very much, Kevin Hatchard, Bundesliga commentator, speaking to us there from London.